Boa tarde, pessoal que está aí firme. Nossa, hoje é dia 10, nós começamos no dia 5. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Não acredito, 10. Nós estamos no sexto dia do 8º Festival Games for Change América Latina. Hoje é um dia muito especial. Eu adoro esse vídeo, né, essa vinheta de apresentação. Vocês veem que rede potente que está surgindo. Né, isso vai ter repercussões em 2021. Vou traduzir um pouquinho para o inglês aqui para os nossos convidados. I'm just telling our audience about the importance of this session, the strength of the network that we are building up gradually, but it's really amazing. It's multi-stakeholder. It's really a long-term project. It's not just the event. It's not just the festival. It's not just those who are watching now, but it's about building up and opening new roads after this pandemic, the post-COVID entertainment and culture and arts scenarios, and what kind of industry will be there after all this. Então, essa é uma sessão muito importante. Eu fui agraciado no ano passado por uma bolsa CAPES Print USP, como professor sênior visitante, visiting senior professor, no King's College de Londres, em parceria com a Coventry University e com a University of Warwick. 3 universidades da Inglaterra, conectando com a Universidade de São Paulo na área de artes e humanidades. Muita coisa legal aconteceu até a pandemia. Eu cheguei na Inglaterra em novembro, aí vem Natal, Ano Novo, na hora que a gente estava começando, lockdown. Before the lockdown, antes do lockdown, os vencedores do Pitch for Change 2019, com patrocínio do Ministério das Relações Exteriores do Brasil, visitou. Nosso roteiro era Inglaterra, França e Alemanha. Chegaram à Inglaterra, fomos a Coventry. I'm telling about the visit to Coventry, just immediately before the lockdown. Para Paris já não deu para ir, na Alemanha eles já avisaram, olha, está tudo fechado. Mas nós visitamos Coventry e fomos recebidos nesse centro que é absolutamente essencial hoje, chamado Disruptive Media Learning Lab. É um laboratório para tudo que diz respeito a essas esferas de aprendizagem que estão se transformando no mundo todo, com mídias disruptivas, mídias que realmente transformam. Então, o Disruptive Media Learning Lab é o nosso partner, é o nosso parceiro na Universidade Coventry. O Sylvester Arnab, vocês vão conhecer, ele vai falar aqui sobre o Disruptive Media Learning Lab, o DMLL, muito incrível. Nós temos projetos, estamos correndo, call for projects daqui, call for projects de lá. É uma cooperação maravilhosa e que vai redundar em muitos resultados. O Richard Thomlins, ele está com a gente já faz o quê? 2 anos. It's like 2 years since you participated in an online classroom. That was before pandemic. Antes da pandemia, a gente já estava se conectando e fazendo aulas ao vivo. O Richard participando da disciplina que veio a virar justamente produção de games, participou de várias sessões, apresentou, comentou projetos. O Richard Thomlins, ele é um especialista no que eles chamam de Transformational Entrepreneurialism, quer dizer, o empreendedorismo transformador. Ele tem muita experiência de Brasil e de outros países no mundo. I'm telling about your experience, both in Brazil and other parts of the world. Então, eu já falei demais, eu queria apresentar, eu estou muito feliz, agradeço muito à Universidade de São Paulo, à Pró-Reitoria de Pós-Graduação, ao nosso programa de pós-graduação, que é um programa interdisciplinar de pós-graduação sobre humanidades, direitos e outras legitimidades da Faculdade de Filosofia, Letras e Ciências Humanas. Foi como professor desse programa que eu apliquei ao concurso e fui um dos selecionados na área de artes e humanidades para um período de 6 meses no King's College, junto com Coventry e Warwick. Veio o lockdown no meio. Isso não impediu a gente de continuar se conectando, trocando ideias, propondo projetos, e hoje é um momento muito especial. A CAPES Print foi a responsável, é um programa, né, que permitiu essa viagem. Eu tenho muita satisfação de entregar esse resultado. O próprio festival e a participação desses nossos queridíssimos parceiros da Inglaterra. Eu vou pedir então para o Richard Thomlins começar, depois a gente vai concluir com o Sylvester Arnab. We'll start with Richard, is that okay? Yeah. And then we move to Sylvester Arnab. Eu vou sair, I'll be off screen, e vamos lá, bom proveito. Richard Thomlins e Sylvester Arnab, Coventry University. Very, very welcome to Brazil.
Bom dia.
Bom dia.
Obrigado, Gilson. So I am Sylvester's warm-up act. So this is very appropriate because you're going to be very inspired by what Sylvester has to say to you. Let me explain a little about what I do and who I work for and my experience in Brazil. And forgive me, I'm not going to try and speak in Portuguese, not least because I've just come from a virtual meeting in Yucatan in Mexico. So I risk confusing my Spanish and my Portuguese, which I've done many times. I'm interested in games with impact and with social impact. So my work life has been around social value and looking for different ways in order to make a difference to society. And for a long while that involved work around race and ethnicity and gender and disability. And I remain interested and committed to tackling those social inequalities and finding a way to do that as an ally in some of those territories and through some of those issues and through my own lived experience in others. And I came into enterprise research, entrepreneurial research, business research, if you like, relatively late in life. In particular through work around social enterprises, so businesses that are set up to, yes, absolutely to trade and absolutely to make a profit, but to lock that profit into doing good, making societal change and empowering people. And that's broadly the area in which I work and met Sylvester. Sly, I can tell you, as he's known to his friends 2 or 3 years ago, and also colleagues. The Disruptive Media Learning Laboratory that Sylvester works from and is the inspiration for, is a hugely inspiring place, and I've learned a lot of the practice that I now know and develop from that. So even within Coventry, Sylvester and colleagues have been very important in terms of knowledge transfer to me. What I've sought to do is to be respectful of that knowledge and to apply it very much in business settings. So I have a whole suite now of playful tools and gamification tools, some of which are taken from Sylvester and the Creative Commons that Disruptive Media Learning Lab has on many of its products, and some of which are developed with their inspiration. And I will play with Lego and use that as an inspiration for strategic thinking and getting people to take this big worldview. And I will play with something called Business Model Canvas to provide a structure for people to develop their businesses. And I've now devised analog, paper, board games and electronic games for 2 or 3 different versions of that, 2 versions of that, to be truthful. And I also play with a tool that I first used in Brazil with one of Sylvester's colleagues, a colleague called Alan Richards, around sprint and drawing. And on that trip to Brazil, we went to Rio and to Maceió and Recife and Belo Horizonte, and I've since returned to those places in Brazil, plus Salvador, plus Santos, plus many other places, Sorocaba, Sao Paulo, etc. So anything that I do with games is within that overall playful interest, and I'm interested in play and playfulness because of the ability to develop a curious mind and a curious mindset. Tangible means of making that real, and I'm interested in the purchase, if you like, that gamification and games brings, and at a very practical level, the way in which it can, games that is, link people of all ages and particularly young people to social change. And I've been exploring with Gilson, and I know he's been exploring with colleagues at University of Warwick, about ways in which blockchain and Bitcoin can be purposed within a game setting to empower people and individuals to see the potential of social good and to invest us all at challenging times with a feeling of agency. And I think that's one of the key things for me is games and the way in which they can illustrate and flag pathways to change which we would not otherwise see without that gamification intervention. The final point I think I want to make before handing over to Sylvester is to say to you that between May 2021 and May 2022, the world's largest arts festival will be happening in Coventry. We are UK City of Culture for 12 months, and we hope that you will participate, and we can provide details outside of this session for you. It's not meant to be an advertising pitch for City of Culture, but City of Culture, Contudo's City of Culture will have a strong theme of gamification, and that would always have been the case. And pandemic COVID has accelerated that, and the need for us to have a more agile set of resources to deploy to give people pleasure, and again to identify pathways to change. And within Coventry and Warwickshire, our county, our region that surrounds us, there's an active creative cluster industrial sector around games. And one of the things that we're looking at as a university is how we connect gamification to more traditional industry, to car making, to Jaguar Land Rover, and how the creative minds that gamification stimulates and encourages and captures maybe can also be repurposed for so-called serious industries. And I think that is all that I should say. I should hand over. I should say to you that Sylvester is an esteemed colleague. He wouldn't tell you this, of course, himself. He's regularly listed as one of the most influential people in this field. He shakes his head, but this is true. This is because he's too modest to tell it to you. And he's my project lead on one project that I'm sure he will talk about, called ACES. And as a project lead, he's inspirational. So what I'd suggest you take from Sylvester is a very modest and humble person who is absolutely at the top of his game, and is very conscious of the potential of play and gamification to bring about a better world for all of us. Sylvester. Sly, over to you.
For, I shall pass you the £10 after the. Thank you very much for such great introduction as well, and thank you very much to Gilson for inviting us to this event, because we have worked together for quite a while now, and in terms of our shared interests in trying to see how we can actually get inspirations from play and games, and how we can actually make a change in terms of the different areas out there in education, in social change, in all sorts of different sectors which play and games can impact. And just to give you a bit of a context, perhaps, of where I come from in terms of my background, my research is very much around trying to understand how can we design games that is going to provide experiences that is going to be challenging, experiences that is going to be empowering, and experiences that is going to help us to connect different subjects and topics in terms of the emotional connection, in terms of the social connection as well. And the way that I'm looking at what we are doing in this particular space, for example, now that we are looking at the challenges with regards to COVID-19, most people are focusing on the content, on how can we deliver content for education, how can we deliver content for health and well-being, so on and so forth. But I believe that it is important for us to really focus on the experiences that we want to create. So this is very much the research that we are looking at in terms of the creation and the co-creation of experiences that is not only going to transform you as the designer of those experiences, but it will also transform those who will be impacted by those experiences. So play and games provide fantastic inspirations for us to understand how do we engage, what types of activities that can actually challenge us in terms of our development, as well as how can we get someone to be emotionally connected to serious purposes and meaningful purposes. So the work that we are doing is looking at, design practices that is going to be suitable for those who are in the industry, as well as down to the simplified version in trying to make it more empathic. So empathic design practices refer to practice in design that will help us to understand the individuals whom we are working with, not only in terms of creating the gameful experiences for these stakeholders or this target audience. It is all about trying to get them to co-create the experiences with us. So the empathic design process that we are looking at is very much around empowering and upskilling individuals to be able to create those experiences, whether you are educators, teachers, lecturers, on and so forth, or whether you are social workers, or whether you are health practitioners, or just individuals who are interested in engaging the general public or a specific target audience in meaningful engagement with serious topics. And this is something that we are very much interested in, and we are working towards involving as many different types of stakeholders as we can. And as you know, that everyone is on different levels in terms of the understanding of what do we mean by games for change, what do we mean by play for change, what do we mean by the use of games and playful inspirations for designing experiences. But one thing that is important is playfulness is universal. Everyone has their own emotional connection to previous activities that are they're involved in when they were growing up, as well as activities that are currently engaging with. So the emotional connection is what we want to replicate. So what we do is we run a lot of trainings as well as different workshops to encourage different individuals from different sectors to experience the co-creation of gameful and playful experiences. For example, teachers whom we are working with in Malaysia, for instance, especially in very remote parts of Malaysia. And I'm wearing the T-shirt here. This is the name of the project, which is called Creative Culture. And we've worked with teachers in very remote parts of Malaysia where they are empowered to design and co-create games that they can actually use in their classroom. And in the first 2-3 hours that we've spent with them, they were so amazed to find that they are creative enough to create different types of gameful and playful activities for the classrooms. It doesn't have to be perfect, but this is how we onboard anyone from any background to be able to create different types of experiences. It doesn't have to be digital as well. So it can range from something that is analog through to something that is digital or hybrid. So this is something that is very interesting, and the activities is very much created and developed in terms of the methods, in terms of the training content that we have. They are being developed under a program which is called Game Changers. So Game Changers has just recently won an award in gamification for education and learning, which has really demonstrated the impact that we have had in the different sectors in terms of gameful education and playful learning initiatives. And as Richard has mentioned before, that we are also working on a project which is funded by the UK Research Funder under the Global Challenges Research Fund, which is involved in investigation around resilience development through the lens of play and games, and how can we develop competencies which will help us to be more resilient in our practices, in our day-to-day life, in our lifelong learning, so on and so forth. So it is quite an interesting project where we are engaged with our stakeholders in Malaysia, in Vietnam, as well as in Indonesia. So there are so many different case studies which we are looking at, and hopefully we will be able to understand the extent through which playfulness can actually develop resilience, not only resilience for the individuals, but the resilience for the community and the resilience for the institutions, as well as the factors, the environmental factors that we will be able to investigate and see how this could inform our experiences, the different types of experiences that you might want to create in terms of engaging individuals in the development of their resilience. So this is something that we are basically working on. We can talk like hours for hours on this particular topic, because it's such an interesting topic to talk about. But one thing that I can say before I end, it's all about trying to empathize with the individuals we are working with. We are not trying to create something that is overly sophisticated or complicated. It is all about trying to understand the target audience, the individuals whom we want to empower, and work with them in trying to understand how they can be impacted by the practices of play and games. It's not just giving them the instruments, but giving them the practice that they can sustain beyond our engagement with them. So yeah, so that is my final word. And thank you very much to Gilson in terms of getting everyone together. And this is such a fantastic festival, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of the videos as well as some of the showcase from the festival that is going to inspire our work as we're here in the UK and in Asia and in different parts of the world. Thank you very much.
I guess I was going to chip in, and you were typically inspiring, Sylvester. I guess the thing that I'd amplify, and I got thrown out of the session, so you may well have said this, but that empathy and that empathetic practice is very much taken through to co-creation and the co-production of resources. So we have a certain level of knowledge, however contudo, our practice is very much to work with communities and to design games and gamification alongside communities which are very much owned by them, and allows them to bring their expertise to a wider audience, and to share that expertise and that brilliance. It's work that I discussed 2 or 3 years ago with Favela Observatory in Rio de Janeiro. So yeah, very, very inspirational. Gilson, Gilson, are you gonna spring to the stage and ask us difficult questions, or do we open up our mics to questions from the delegates? Or otherwise, Sylvester, we can be talking heads for a little bit longer.
Perhaps while waiting for Gilson, there's one thing that is of building on what Richard just mentioned in terms of the different case studies, the different examples, the different inspirations that we can actually have. One thing that we are going to work on next year is we are going to have over 10 different countries who are going to talk about their different case studies on how they have used play or creative methods in addressing the challenges of education in their countries. So we would have different examples from, for example, Brazil, Bolivia, from Japan, from Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, from Australia as well. And we are still compiling and curating these different 10-minute case studies in terms of the videos from different teachers, researchers, from those who are actually working on the ground. So this is going to be our webinar. So the videos will be released to inspire anyone to be able to actually use play and games for creating the experiences. And then we would have different sessions where we can actually talk about those particular topics. So we want to do it in a different way next year. So this is something that we will share with the community in Brazil, especially the community generally in the Latin America, Games for Change, who might be able to tap into such resources that could help us to create a community where we can actually work together and learn from one another in the creation of experiences for our communities.
So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, Sylvester. One is practically, how can people get involved in that? Is it easiest for them to contact Gilson and the conference organisers here to be part of that process, or should they try and contact us directly in Coventry?
Yeah. It would be good for them to get in touch with Gilson, especially from Brazil or from the Latin America sort of section of the Games for Change. If there are anything that they would like to showcase in terms of, for example, how they have worked with the remote communities in their countries, or they have worked in schools where they are working with children from underprivileged sort of section of the city, and that sort of thing, that we are very much want to get inspirations from how they engage with the learners, how they change the way they practice teaching and learning, how they impact the community. So they can first and foremost perhaps get in touch with Gilson, because Gilson is going to be involved in this. So we were confirmed everything next year, and we were informed, we were promoted perhaps in January or February, so that everyone have knowledge of where and when and what and how.
So Gilson, if you didn't know already, you're going to be involved in that. This is your official notice of that. And I guess the other way in which we could develop our conversation a little further, Sylvester, is around the role of technology and how far we need to be high tech. And certainly in my own practice in terms of gamification, I'm probably happiest with physical board game, an analog, and I probably force myself to do the digital part, and then I'm inspired by digital. But have you got thoughts in terms of the different sophistication of platforms and the way in which people can use analog gamification and then connect that through to digital? And also listeners, viewers, we've got Coventry's a 5G testbed city, so we're going to have tech all around us. We're also a test city for driverless cars. But Sylvester, have you got a view to the role of tech in these processes?
It's quite interesting that you asked that question, because we were in the European Summit for Digital Teaching and Learning today, which was interesting in terms of the discussion around post-pandemic, post-COVID, in terms of where everyone is dropped into the situation where everything has to be, quote unquote, has to be digitized and whatnot. But my view in this is, and also a shameless plug, I talk about it in my book in terms of hybrid learning.
And which book is that, Sylvester?
It is called Game Science in Hybrid Learning.
And where can people get it from, Sylvester?
They can get it from Amazon, from all the main retailers. But yeah, so the idea of hybrid learning is not about blended learning. Hybrid learning is about the configuration of learning, regardless of platforms, whether it's offline, online, whether it's digital, physical, whether it's individual or grouping sort of types of learning. The configuration is not influenced by technology. The configuration of learning experiences is influenced by the needs, actual needs that happened at a particular time. So I always believe we should not be entirely driven by technology. We need to be entirely driven by the needs of the learners whom we are going to engage with. For example, some learners, especially in remote parts of the different parts of the world, even in Europe, they don't have access to stable internet connections. So that would create gaps, digital gaps, that would create inequality, that would create inequitable sort of learning access. So we need to try and understand, and again, it will go to the idea of empathic design practices in terms of understanding who those stakeholders are, what type of experiences that you can create, understand who can have access to the digital means, who can't have access to digital means, and you cannot separate them. You need to provide the experiences that is going to be not similar, but experiences that will empower both different types of groups. For example, there are teachers who have been nominated as a teacher of the year in different parts of the world, where they took into their own hands of delivering playful activities for learners to actually do at home, because the learners do not have access to the internet connection at all. And some of them would travel 4 to 5 hours to the different villages to deliver packages. So this is something that we need to understand in terms of the experience that we want to create, how we want to deliver it, what platform it can be. Because as I've said before, we work with stakeholders from different spectrum of readiness. Some people who are very much enthusiastic with new, shiny technologies, that is fine. So we will be able to provide support for those types of individuals. But of course, there are people who might be more, they will demonstrate friction against change and whatnot. So the way that we engage with these different types of groups would be different as well. So we need to empathize, and we need to, in a way, in terms of education, hybrid learning is about configuring experiences at the speed of need, regardless of the binary of offline, online, digital, physical, so on and so forth.
So I'm gonna suggest that that's something that's outcome focused, and again, listeners, viewers to this, I guess my spin on that, my perspective on that is, again, the way in which we can use the tools that are around us at any particular time for our own well-being, including social change, and including being happy, and also social change. The sprint business prototyping work that I started with one of Sylvester's colleagues, it was the project that took us to Rio and Belo Horizonte and Recife and Maceió. The final stage of that process, which we boiled down to 3.5 hours. Google Ventures, if anyone's read the book Sprint, will allocate you 5 days, but we were working around 3.5 hours, and you move, you have to draw everything, and it's very low tech. I'm not sure how literally this translates into Portuguese. It's very lo-fi, low fidelity. So you draw your big idea, your big opportunity. In Recife, they were keen to educate me that the big opportunity for entrepreneurs in Recife was gastronomy. And I was very English and said to them, "Oh, you mean food?" And they were like, "No, gastronomy." And they talked very much about the connection of culinary traditions in Recife to the earth, and also to the African experience, and also to the slave experience in that context. And they drew this Picasso-like picture of a diner's senses being awakened by the smell, by the sight of the dish, by the touch of the spoon to the bowl, by the taste of this gorgeous food. And it was very much connected back into earth. And they did this through a drawing. So Sylvester, for me, it's the way in which the permission to be playful, and to play, and to conduct games, or us to gamify that process, allows people to go onto a journey whereby they within that 3.5 hour process, that group built a restaurant, but because we would only let them use the tools in the room, they built it out of chairs and cardboard boxes. But you could almost taste the food, and you could feel the illustration. I hope some of those colleagues from Recife are listening to this, because it was quite an inspiration. Sorry, Sylvester.
That's great, because that's sort of aligning with, especially in terms of your expert area, in terms of social value. Social value can translate into all sorts of different things, and it is also important for entrepreneurship in terms of playfulness. Allow people to be more being able to explore, in creative inquiry and taking risk and learning from mistakes and whatnot. So I think this is important in terms of the social value of it.
Yeah, it's the social value of the creative process. So again, I run the risk of being too academic and listeners switching off left, right, and centre. But this idea of social value is one that I've written about. It sounds like I'm trying to sell my book now. But by the way, the film rights for Sylvester's book are still available. So if there's any film producers out there, anyway, I digress. But this idea of social value is it's the whole economic, environmental, and people footprint of the things that we do. And any historians out there will perhaps remember a guy called Bobby Kennedy, who ran for president in America in 1968. He was unfortunately assassinated on the campaign trail, and he talked very eloquently about, if you like, the most important things in life, and the danger that we ignore those, and we become focused very much on tangible things. And even though he didn't call it social value. He represented it in a way that I'm actually going to read you this to your slice. So Bobby Kennedy back in 1968 said our gross national product now is over $800 billion even then. But that gross national product, the way in which we measure our economic health, if you like, if we judge the United States of America by that, counts air pollution and cigarette advertising and ambulances to clear our highways of carnage. It counts special locks for our doors and the jails for the people who break them. It counts napalm, which of course was the chemical weapon that was being dropped by the Americans on Southeast Asia at that time, and counts nuclear warheads and armoured cars for the police to fight the riots in our cities. Some of you will have watched the film Detroit 2 or 3 years ago, which was very much around that theme. Yet it does not allow for the health of our children, the quality of their education, or the joy of their play. It does not include the beauty of our poetry or the strength of our marriages. It measures neither our wit nor our courage, neither our wisdom nor our learning, neither our compassion nor our devotion. It measures everything, in short, except that which makes life worthwhile. And I think for my inspiration for gamification is it's a hook to get people to stop some of the noise of life and to focus on those really important but often ignored things. And I guess in a way, in our ACES project, your ACES project in Malaysia and Indonesia and Vietnam, we've started talking about people's resilience, and do you want to? That seems to me very much in that context. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that concept of resilience, or we can to and fro about it?
Yes, we could actually. Resilience is all about the way that we engage with uncertainties, the way that we react to it, and the way that we develop ourselves and transform ourselves and adapt in situations that might not be within our control. And how can we prepare for something that is so uncertain? For example, COVID-19 situation where we all had to adapt, we all had to respond to it, and we all respond in different ways. And we do need mental well-being as well as physical well-being, and as well as the social connection that we need to have with those around us. So when we talk about resilience and when we talk about disaster, most of the time resilience in terms of the theory of resilience is often connected to the uncertainties caused by disasters. But there are everyday disasters. We all have our own disasters. But how do we cope with them as individuals? How do we cope with disasters that will influence or impact the community? How can we do it in a group type thing? So those are the things that we are interested in within the project. And you can see the way the different communities in Malaysia, Indonesia, and Vietnam are responding to COVID-19. The way they respond to them are very different, because it is also influenced by culture. It's influenced by religion. It is influenced by different social factors, which will also be different if you think about community in Brazil, community in the different parts of the world, in the UK even. And the UK being such a multicultural country, that the way they respond to different uncertainties will be different. But how can we encourage our young people and the teachers as well to be able to develop certain competencies? Perhaps if you want to look at it in a formalized approach in terms of competencies, being creative, being able to problem solve, being able to socially construct solutions to different challenges which are thrown at them. So those are the things that we are very much interested in, and also entrepreneurship, in terms of some of the skills that will allow people to think beyond the formality of education, what matters, the meaning behind what they are actually doing in their day-to-day lives. Those are the things which I think is important in the project.
Yeah, I think there's again, I got thrown out for that 2 or 3 minutes, so apologies, Sly, if you covered it. But I think we're through games and resilience, we're very much into experiential learning and experiential practice. I up until pandemic, ironically, I was still delivering mental health awareness training in London for one of the London boroughs, and we'd talk about people's resilience as their bounce back ability, and the store cupboard of resources that you might not even know that you have to draw on when times are difficult and times are hard. And I think the thing about gamification, I can almost see myself if I was at school or college in a session and someone's saying to me, Rich, today we're going to teach you about resilience, and I'd be like, oh God, just let me listen to music or something like that. But it's the way in which we can engage through playfulness or something like that to engender those skills and attributes in a natural way. One of the projects, actually I've not had a good chance to talk to you about this one, Sylvester, that I've got at the moment is with colleagues in Victoria in South Brazil, and one of the things that we're looking at with well, we wouldn't have managed to do it without KUFA, but with KUFA is the mental health of entrepreneurs in the favelas across Brazil at this time. And what we're looking to do is to establish a baseline. Couldn't get my thoughts in order there, apologies. Establish a baseline of what that mental health is, and to within that then start thinking about how we get typically the likes of you and I, men of a certain age who never talk about mental health, the way in which we work around play and gamification to make that a more natural process, and to build a resource for ourselves and for others. Excellent. So the mental health game is coming soon, maybe.
So there are so many different opportunities for us to impact individuals on a very granular level. So this is something that we are very much interested in, and of course there are so many different topics that we are looking at as well, not just resilience in terms of mental health. We're also looking at racism, we're looking at cyber bullying, and all sorts of different activities that has been in a way influenced further by digital platforms in terms of social media and all sorts of different platforms out there, Discord, some of the platforms that parents are not aware of. Those are the things that I think that we need to be aware of and be able to work with young people to ensure that they are safe in their development.
Cool. We're getting little. It's just like on the TV. We've got little messages and feeds into our ears, and Sylvester being politely told by Gilson that we need to shut up very soon, because Karina and Lenice, who are the stars behind the scenes, want to stream the closing video vignette, and Gilson awaits you in another streaming room. It sounds quite exciting. I mean, my one lesson of this session is never to come to a Brazilian session from Merida, Yucatan, Mexico, because look what they did to my hair. My hair was just like Sylvester's when I went to Mexico, and it's after a difficult hour meeting with Merida, my hair is all messy. So I think it is time for you and I to say obrigado and farewell.
Obrigado, and have a good afternoon and enjoy the rest of the festival. And Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Christmas is coming. Lenice is bursting in. I don't know whether viewers you can see Lenice, but Lenice has popped up on my little picture, which is the signal for me to shut up. So
no.
Thank you for being inspiring, Sylvester. And obrigado, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, everyone. And remember, Coventry is UK City of Culture 2021 to 22. We will get information on it to you.
I would like to thank Richard and Sylvester on behalf of the entire team of Games for Change Latin America, and invite you to come after the next edition of Games for Change in the year. So thank you so much for your presence, for the public who was watching this live, and see you next.
Lenice, they were watching until we started talking. They've all gone now.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm gonna finish this live, okay?
Obrigado, Lenice. Perfeito.